Welcome to Minnesota Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I am Tom Ellinger, and I am honored to serve the congregation this year as a member of the Board of Trustees. You are welcome here, however old or young you are, wherever you were born and grew up, whoever your ancestors were, and in whatever religious tradition you were raised. You are welcome here, whatever your gender, and whoever you love. You are welcome with whatever abilities and limitations you have. We invite you to bring your whole self, whether this is your first time here or you have been with us for many years. Your presence, your very presence, is a gift to us. We're glad you're here. We hope you will be glad you came and that you will welcome others. After the service, everyone is invited to share a potluck lunch and conversation in the social hall down the stairs prior to the concert at 12:30. We look forward to this chance to make new friends and renew old acquaintances. Welcome.
Our chalice lighting this morning. Please join me. We light this chalice for all who are here and all who are not, for all who have ever walked through our doors, for those who may yet find this spiritual home, and for those we can't even yet imagine. For each of us and for all, may this flame burn warm and bright. I invite you to rise in body or spirit to join in singing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Fires will kindle once flame.
arrive here this morning as we do every Sunday with both joys and sorrows in our hearts. And one of the many promises that we make to each other in this beloved community is that we will both help each other celebrate the joys and help each other bear the sorrows. If you have a brief personal joy or sorrow to share, we invite you to raise your hand, and an usher will bring you a microphone after I read the one that I received in writing. And then if you are online, we invite you to type your joy or sorrow into the chat or put a request into chat for you to be unmuted, and we'll check in with you. So the one that I have in writing this morning is from Tom Ellinger, who says, "This week, my sister Carol was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my brother Ed was diagnosed with metastatic thyroid cancer. Life carries challenges, and love is what sees us through. Send love to my sibs. Thanks." And Tom is here. He's just taking a turn being the person by the door, so he will be around for you to speak to after service if you wish. All right, who else has a joy or sorrow this morning?
Wow, this is not a joyful coincidence. My name is Carla, and I just found out yesterday that a dear old friend of mine just had surgery for breast cancer and will be starting radiation soon. And the kicker is that I just saw her for the first time in like 20 years a few weeks ago, and she was the picture of health and has always been the picture of health. So please, if you can spare any thoughts for my friend, Kirsten, I appreciate it.
Good morning. I'm Deb Lewis. This is my husband, Jeff, and we are Lark's parents. Yes, we are very proud of her. And we came down in part to celebrate with her. She had a milestone birthday this week, and we're just thrilled to be back again with you.
Hi, I'm Leslie McNeil, and I wasn't sure if I was going to share this or not, but kind of in the theme that we started with, I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer as well. So I do chemo and radiation starting probably in the next week or so.
I'm Mimi Law, and I am, what would I call, the joy of this woman that I met when my husband was going through dementia care, and now her husband is dying. So please think of her. It's such a hard thing. Trying to think of something good. I got new windows.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nikki Holm. I'll give a little joy. Some of you know that my youngest turned 3 last month. Well, we had a joint birthday party for my 3-year-old and almost 5-year-old yesterday at a gymnastics studio, which was a lot of fun. But the real joy was that for some of you who maybe knew a little bit about my life a year ago, as my husband and I were beginning separation, he wasn't psychologically able to celebrate their birthdays. And he came yesterday, and he was there, and there was no conflict, and everyone got along well. And so it was just a big joy to see my kids be able to celebrate both their parents being in the same place and have it be about them. So.
My name is Candace McLean, and my sort of sorrow is the pain that mothers of autistic children are going through right now, including my daughter, the mother of 2 autistic sons. My joy is that she has risen from this and said, I took Tylenol because I had pain and I did not take enough to cause any problems. I am not guilty, and I'm tired of people looking at autistic children as if there's something wrong with them. I have 3 wonderful children. Each of them is individually different, and each of them is wonderfully wonderful. So.
Matthew Schneider, and and I'll have to say, as a father of an autistic child, that joy brought me joy, so thank you. But the real reason why I wanted to speak is I wanted just to request all of our thoughts and strengths sent to those that are resisting and thinking of, or basically hoping for truth and for everything to just kind of work out the best that it can in the times that we live. Thank you.
I will share a quick joy. Some of you met visitors, Justin Gansky and Chloe, whose last name I'm not remembering in this moment, but they were here a couple of weeks ago. They recently moved to Prior Lake from Mankato. Some of you spoke with them during fellowship time after the service as well. And yesterday I had the honor of officiating their wedding up in Duluth at the Rose Garden there, and it was beautiful. They're a lovely couple, and they said they will see us when they're back from their honeymoon. So. Do we have any online joys or sorrows? No. All right, well, I'll take just a moment to acknowledge that, as has been named, we come here not only with our personal joys and sorrows, but with all of those that we take in from the wider world around us, whether that is misinformation about autism or whether it is law enforcement invading American cities, or whether it is war in Gaza and Ukraine and elsewhere. And so we hold all of those impacted by global issues as well as local ones in our hearts this morning. Please join me in the musical response.
The words for our centering space today come from Leslie Takahashi. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest is false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. But life tells its truth in many hues. We are taught to think either or. To believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. But life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes. Good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than the monochrome. That a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins hold the center.
We have just a few announcements this morning, all related to the concert happening here at 12:30 today. We are hosting a concert by guitarist David Rogers. Admission is pay what you can with a suggested donation of $15 per person, and I hope you will all stay for both the potluck and the concert if you're able. In order to allow David to quickly set up and do a sound check, we ask that at the end of the service, everyone please clear out of this room as quickly as possible. Head on downstairs for that potluck. And we can also use your help cleaning up after the potluck so that everyone can get that done quickly and come upstairs to enjoy the concert. So if you're able to pitch in that way, we thank you. Generosity is one of the spiritual qualities that we aspire to, and it is also one of the practices that we nurture in this community. With our offering each Sunday, we give of our financial resources to support the work of this congregation. We know, of course, that giving financially is only one of the many ways that each of us supports that work. We also do it with our time and with our talents, and today with our food. All of those are necessary for the vital work that we do, both for each other and for the wider community in which we live. We donate half of our collection every Sunday to support one of our sharing partners, organizations who are in alignment with our Unitarian Universalist values. For the month of September, our sharing partner is the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, or MIRAC, which is an all-volunteer, grassroots, multiracial, and multinational immigrant rights mass movement organization. MIRAC fights for legalization for all, an end to immigration raids and deportations, an end to all anti-immigrant laws, and full equality in all areas of life. You can give in person as baskets are brought around, or online using either the QR code that will be on the screen and also is on your printed order of service if you are here in the room, or using the donate online link on our website. Please give as generously as you are able.
always hard to follow, Lark. I have often had difficulty finding my circle, one to which I can bring all parts of myself. I imagine most people feel that way sometimes. For starters, I am a 100% Latina living in the US. The only daughter of a Chilean and a Venezuelan, I was born and raised in Maracaibo, a city of over 1 million people, who now lives in suburban Minnesota. Growing up, I had many circles, but seldom did I truly feel a part of any. I attended the international school in Maracaibo, where I was surrounded by gringos and European kids who were only around for a year or two. It could be difficult building friendships on such little shared life experience, but we worked at it. Over the years, my circle of friends seemed to have a revolving door of arrivals and departures, each of us trying to fit in. There were other circles that I belonged to some degree. I did ballet and track and field, two completely different groups of people, neither of which I socialized with, so although we spent a lot of time together and working toward common goals, I still felt like an outsider most of the time. Eventually, I made friends with some local kids, but here I was also mostly an outsider. I had to be taught to dance salsa and merengue correctly, and had to learn a host of new social norms. Starting at 9 years old, I attended a summer camp in Western North Carolina, where I was far from my concrete jungle home and was surrounded by Southern belles. Fortunately, I was able to bond with a few of my cabin mates, and in time, I began to recognize some of their cultural references, and they forgave a lot of my foreign quirks. As I matured, I progressed from purely academic to colloquial English and a nearly perfected American accent, as well as understanding the nuances of being a local in my own hometown. Because most of my circles never coincided, I became an expert at code switching, which led to more isolation. It felt like I could never bring all of me to any one circle. Once I moved to the US and settled into adult life, my circles became fewer and less diverse. Since I generally pass as a white native English speaker, I found myself in social circles of mostly white local coworkers, regardless of whether we really had anything in common. And due to adult life being exhausting, I rarely had energy to go out looking for other circles. When my husband Brian and I were married, we began attending our very first UU church. At the time, it had been years since I had been part of a circle I really felt comfortable in. Finding myself with like-minded people from diverse socioeconomic strata and various ethnic heritages was a dream come true. But then we moved to Minnesota. I had to start all over again. Though I have family in the area, our kids are very different ages, and we are scattered all over the metro. It wasn't until I joined my first early childhood and family education classes that I found a friendly circle again. We may have begun as overwhelmed, clueless parent strangers, but a few of us became friends who were still overwhelmed and clueless parents. This is a circle close to my heart to this day. When we found MVUUF, I found another cozy circle. Eventually, I got a job and was lovingly accepted into the Oak Grove Elementary Circle as well. And because most of my life happens in Bloomington, my circles often touch and overlap, and that is delightful. To this day, the only circle I feel completely myself in is at home. Anywhere else, there's always a part of me that I cannot bring. Be it my quirky sense of humor, my many cultural references, or even my native tongue. I still feel the need to modulate mannerisms and speech based on whom I'm hanging out with, and that is okay. We all do it to a certain degree. I guess my point is that regardless of whether your circles are neatly concentric or like Venn diagrams or like disconnected bubbles, the important thing is that you find ones where you can be honest about who you are. Others in your circle may not look or sound like you, but as long as everyone can feel being mostly themselves, you are in good shape.
Thank you, Carla. All right, little tech issue. All right, 2 Sundays ago here at MVUUF, our topic was Welcome Home, and we considered how this fellowship is like a home to many of us, a place where we are loved for all, or at least most, of who we are, hopefully always working towards that all. Last week, our topic was what binds us together, and we considered how in this non-creedal tradition, it is covenant, our promises of how we commit to be with each other that unites us. So that leads me to a question. Who is the us that gathers? Who is included in our circle? We know that there are those we count as part of this community, even if they are not physically present. Not only those who join us for services on Zoom, but members and friends who are perhaps no longer physically able to attend Sunday services, or maybe who are just away this particular week. What about those who have not yet entered our doors? In the 21st century, and especially post-COVID lockdown, when we learned to use technology in new ways, as how church looks has changed, there is an increasing shift away from defining our we by who is an official member, and towards understanding we as all the people whose lives this fellowship touches. For us here at MVUUF, that includes people who may never attend a Sunday morning service, but they come for Buddhist meditation, or Indivisible, or Spirit Grove. They come for Mahjong, or the Needlework Guild. They come to a wedding, or a memorial, or a child dedication. They come to the auction, or stop by our booth at Pride Fest. Some of them may become increasingly involved and may even join the fellowship, and others may stay connected with us in only a specific way, like one of those that I just listed. Do we think of them as part of us? Do we consider them when we think about who our shared ministry serves? I believe we should. As I said in our in-gathering service, there is a comfort that comes from finding a community of people with values in common, whether or not the details of our personal theologies are a perfect match. A community where we feel welcomed from our first moments in the building, where we are welcome even when we haven't lived up to our own expectations, where we are welcomed back even after long absences. We come home time and again to where our spirits feel welcome and loved. To whom are we extending that welcome? Today, I invite us to focus on how we do or do not unintentionally erect barriers to the full welcome of those who may come to us seeking a spiritual home where they are authentically invited into a covenantal relationship with us. And so I want to invite you on a little journey with me for the next few minutes. I invite you to close your eyes if you are comfortable doing so, or soften your gaze. And I invite you to remember the first time you ever walked into this fellowship, whether that's today or 50 years ago. What was that experience like for you? How did you find out about the fellowship? A friend? The internet? Something in the media? Noticing the sign when you drove by? What brought you here that day? Were you searching for something specific? Were you in a time of crisis and looking for support or sustenance? Were you curious? Had you been invited by someone? Was it your first time attending any Unitarian Universalist congregation, or were you already a Unitarian Universalist and now looking for a new congregation, perhaps after moving here from far away? How long had you been in Bloomington or the Greater Twin Cities Metro? Did it feel like home already, or was everything about this area new and unfamiliar? How did you feel when you approached the building that first time, whether it was this building or the prior version of it? Were you excited, anxious, curious, some blend of those maybe? Did you have any trouble finding the fellowship? Was there a parking spot for you when you arrived? Did you have any trouble entering the building? Who was the first person who spoke with you? It doesn't matter if you don't remember their name, but was it an official greeter or someone sitting next to you in the service, or perhaps the service leader after the service? When did that first person speak to you? How long were you here before someone invited you into a conversation? Something more than just handing you an order of service or asking you to fill out a visitor form. How did you feel as you either spoke with someone or entered the sanctuary in silence? When you looked around, did you see people who looked like you? People with your skin color? People your age? People who dress like you do? Did you hear people speaking the language you are most fluent in? Did you feel like you fit in at first glance, or did you feel conspicuously different? Did you sit alone, or were you invited to sit with someone? Were you somehow identified as a newcomer, either by a name tag or a special color of coffee mug during coffee hour, which is a thing that many congregations did for a long time, or in a time in the service when visitors were invited to stand and introduce themselves, which some of them love and some of them dread? How did any of that feel to you? Was it comfortable for you to be seen in that particular way? Were there things you felt unsure about that first time, things you didn't know how to do? For example, whether your children should start out in the service with you or go straight to the classroom. Did people use terms or acronyms that you didn't understand? Unitarian Universalists you use are often guilty of using lots of acronyms without explaining. Were the hymns familiar? Were there unfamiliar words to a hymn that you knew with different lyrics in another setting? Did the lyrics make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable? And after you left that first time, did anyone contact you? If so, did it feel welcoming or pushy? What about it felt that way for you? Whether you left that first encounter with this fellowship with an impression that you were welcome or that you were not, or that you weren't sure and would have to try again to see, what do you think contributed to that impression? Now, I invite you to open your eyes and think about that first visit one more time, but this time imagining how it might have been different if something about you was different. Perhaps instead of walking through the doors, you arrived in a wheelchair or scooter. Perhaps when you came in, you saw no one else with your skin color. Perhaps you heard no one speaking the language in which you are most fluent. How would that have changed your first experience here? In light of that, I ask, is our door, not just the door to our building, but the door to truly belonging here, open to all? I know that we intend that it is, and I ask this question not to shame or criticize us, but simply to name the fact that we, like most Unitarian Universalist congregations, and quite possibly most other congregations as well, we experience a gap between our aspiration, how welcoming we want to be, and the reality of how welcoming we are, particularly to people who are in some way different from the theoretical average Unitarian Universalist in most of our communities. I wonder, who are we unintentionally leaving outside our circle? Who might we even be turning away without even realizing it? One place we might begin is to examine our assumptions about who we are. Are there those of us who are already here, that version of we? Are there things that we just assume are true of all Unitarian Universalists? Beyond the shared values that we all name and affirm as part of our practice of faith, there are very few things we can say are true of all of us, if there are any at all. And yet we make assumptions about who is within the circle that defines who counts as one of us. We make assumptions about what you can or cannot be, and also be a Unitarian Universalist. Some other time I'll talk with you about my family's experience of being challenged as to whether you can both be military and Unitarian Universalist. This was in the 70s, so it's a little bit of a different time, but that is a reality my family faced. More than once in more recent years, but not only these very recent years, I have heard assumptions made about political affiliation in Unitarian Universalist congregations. Several years ago, maybe 7 or 8 now, at General Assembly, a youth spoke during one of the voting sessions, and in the middle of an otherwise very compelling statement, he made a comment that assumed all Unitarian Universalists are Democrats, or at the very least, not Republicans. There were audibly unhappy responses from those in the hall. Clearly, some of us in the room believed it is not okay to make that kind of assumption. And I know that today's political scene might make that feel a little less uncomfortable, but I would challenge us to remember that it's still the case. And it's not just the inexperience of youth. We can't write it off to that. When I lived in Georgia many years ago, 2000, 2001, I was dating a moderate Republican, and he found a religious home in the Unitarian Universalist congregation that he attended with me nearly every Sunday. We went to a potluck together sometime in 2001 at a congregant's home, and the talk turned to politics. Someone made a comment about Republicans, the kind of comment you wouldn't make if you knew you were sitting next to one, and my heart sank. I looked at my partner, and he shook his head ever so slightly, giving me the let it go signal to stop me from calling the speaker out on the assumption, because he knew I would if he didn't stop me. But he never felt quite as at home in our congregation after that, and that broke my heart. I wonder, how many times do we make assumptions like that? Assumptions that make someone feel less at home here with us because we have a too narrow definition of who we are. I wonder what other assumptions we, and here I don't mean only this fellowship, but the wider Unitarian Universalist community, what do we assume about the people who find a spiritual home with us? Sometimes we assume a certain level of education or financial security, because historically we have often been named among the denominations with the highest levels of academic achievement and income levels. I actually think we're a little too proud of that fact, and that when we take such pride in those kinds of achievements, we forget the Universalist side of our roots, which were not the Boston elite of early Unitarianism, but much more rural and working class folks. How open is our metaphorical door to people across all financial and educational spectrums, as well as those of gender identity, sexual orientation, and race, which we often do better with because we are more explicit about discussing it? Who do we actively invite to enter our circle? Who feels welcome or unwelcome when they come in our doors, and why? Who are we missing, failing to invite or failing to welcome adequately when they arrive? Can we be the voices of invitation, letting people know we would love for them to join us some Sunday? In my experience as a nearly lifelong Unitarian Universalist, I can tell you with certainty that many UUs avoid speaking to others about our faith. We get tired of trying to explain how we can be a congregation if we don't all believe the exact same thing, or of explaining that no, we are not some New Age cult, but in fact a religion with centuries of rich history, or we fear being thought weird, or we fear being considered pushy. That last one in particular can stop us, I think. When I was in college, I went to my first service at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln, Nebraska. And the title of that sermon on that day was, "Shall We Be Evangelical Too?" In it, the minister, Reverend Charles Stevens, shared the etymology of the word evangelical, which has to do with the bringing of good news. In our time in history, we've come to have a different understanding of that word, believing that it means a particular variety of Christian who is enthusiastically, to put it nicely, trying to convert others to that particular brand of Christianity, not just Christianity as a whole, so that they may be saved. And we, of course, as a people who do not believe there is one right answer to the big questions of life, including whether or not there is a God, and if so, what that is exactly, or how God operates in our world or doesn't, and as a people who do not believe anyone is damned and therefore no one needs saving in that particular way, we would never want to be that kind of evangelical. But Reverend Stephen asked, and I still wonder decades later, why we are not more willing to share the good news of our tradition. The good news that if there is a God, God is loving, not vengeful, and that all humans are holy, regardless of any belief in a higher power, what we often call the good news of original blessing rather than the theology of original sin. We have so much to offer the world, and I think even more so in this painful time. Our faith literally saves lives. I have met people who have powerful stories of how Unitarian Universalism literally kept them alive, whether by convincing them that life was worth living, or by giving them the inner and outer resources they needed to leave abusive relationships or seek treatment for an addiction or get help with mental health challenges. We literally save lives with our message of love and worth. So now I have some questions for you, but I am not asking you to raise your hands for these questions because the first one's easy and then they get harder. You might not want to raise your hands as much. So these are just for you to reflect on. How many of you have invited a non-Unitarian Universalist friend or family member to come to service with you? How many of you have thought about inviting someone but decided against it? And if that's you, is there something other than the fear of seeming pushy that holds you back? Is there perhaps something that you think would seem unwelcoming to the person you may have thought about inviting? Sometimes using this lens can help us see some of the barriers that we have in place that we don't notice most days. I've been in congregations where the words spoken from the pulpit not only assume no one in the room is Christian, despite the fact that it is not that long ago, historically speaking, that Unitarian, and I do mean Unitarian pre-merger, churches stopped being explicitly Christian, and the fact that some actually still are in practice. But the words from the pulpit sometimes imply or even say directly that we are somehow better, smarter, and more rational than those Christians. I probably wouldn't invite any of my Christian friends to one of those congregations, and yet many liberal Christians find a home in Unitarian Universalism and contribute greatly to our faith, including in our ministry. Some of the colleagues I am most impressed by are Christian Unitarian Universalist ministers, and I say that as a non-Christian myself. I would hate to imagine the loss to our faith if they had never found their way in our doors. And I'm so glad that here at MVUUF, we not only explicitly welcome Christians who share our values, but even have a Christian affinity group, as well as groups for pagans, humanists, and Buddhists. I'm proud that we're not leaving one of those groups out or acting superior to them. Now, here's what really stops me in my tracks when I think about this topic. How do you know that the person you haven't invited might not be in desperate need of our message or of the kind of community that we have here? How do you know that your invitation might not save a life? There is just one more aspect of welcome and inclusion that's important to name as we're thinking about widening our circle. We've named repeatedly that love is at the very center of our Unitarian Universalist theology, including the once heretical belief in a loving God rather than a punitive God for those of us who believe in God, which is part of how we arrived at a Universalist theology in which no one is damned, no one sent to hell for eternal punishment. Today, in the 21st century, we also understand our theology as asking us to embody love. And one of the ways we do that is through offering the widest possible welcome while also holding appropriate boundaries. A few years ago, I read something on social media that has stuck with me. The words were attributed to Adam Bates on Facebook. You can say all are welcome, but if wolves and sheep are both welcome, then you're only going to get wolves. The smart sheep will go somewhere else, and the naive sheep will be eaten. If you welcome Islamophobes and Muslims, then you'll get Islamophobes. If you welcome Klan members and people of color, then you'll get Klan members. If you welcome nativists and immigrants, you'll get nativists. Refusing to choose, he says, is a choice. It's a choice in favor of the people who prey on others and who refuse to acknowledge the humanity of those they hate. So, on the one hand, I invite us to always be asking who has not yet been included in our imagining of the widest, most inclusive possible version of what we mean when we say we. And on the other hand, I challenge us to be clear about the boundaries that make our welcome as safe as possible, especially for those who most need us. In these ways and in others, I hope we are always expanding the circle of who we consider part of this gathered community. May it always be so. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and the
join me in the words of our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And as we prepare to leave our hour together, may we remember that we have gifts to offer, that we have the power to share something that saves some lives and changes many more. And may we have the courage to open our doors and our hearts wide and to invite everyone in. They won't all come, and that's okay, but let's invite them. Let's be ambassadors for Unitarian Universalism and for this fellowship, seeking to extend the reach of love as we widen our circle. May it be so.
This song we're about to sing, Draw the Circle Wide by Mark Miller, is a popular Unitarian Universalist song, and it certainly is beloved to us and has been in our music library for a long time and may be familiar to some of you. And so we invite you to sing any of it with us if you like. It'll feel most natural, I think, at the very beginning and at the very end.
Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one stands you are.